Hare Krishna, dear devotees. You all are very welcome to today's session. I will hand it over to Devi so that she can do an introduction. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to the next session for Srimadbhagavatam Gems. So Prabhuji has been very carefully preparing some wonderful teachings for today's session. And I'm aware that he's going to speak on 3 verses from Canto 3, Chapter 25 of Srimad Bhagavatam, verses number 21, 22, and 23. And these verses will be displayed, they will be shared. Now, some of us are familiar that Canto 3 talks about Lord Kapila, who is incarnation of Supreme Lord. He gives beautiful wisdom to his own mother, Devahuti. And this chapter is titled The Glories of Pure Devotional Service. Last week, Prabhuji gave class, the last class which was done, it talked about verse which glorified the pure devotees of the Lord, importance of sadhu sangha, Krsna Katha, and transformation in our consciousness. So let us see what these 3 verses are further going to nourish us with. So Prabhuji, let's get started with the prayers. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us for the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirye Shavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantastohya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagvat Sevaya Bhagavatiruttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavti Nashtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today, these verses I'll be quickly sharing. And in essence, these verses are describing who is a sadhu. So it's a definition of sadhu that we learn from these verses. And this enables us to understand how a sadhu behaves. So what is their character? What is their conduct? And what's their consciousness? Hare Krishna. Please join us in the recitation of the verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, verse 21. It's a very famous verse. Titikshava karunikaha surhid sarvadehinam ajashatruvah shantaha sadhva sadhu bhushanaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The symptoms of sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. Hare Krishna. Please join us in reciting Prabhupada Pranati and getting blessings from the Acharyas so that we can be in right consciousness as we read through these purports and other verses. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Devi, would you like to read the purport?
Hare Krishna. So I think I will read some part of the purport and I will also invite some others to do the reading. So this first paragraph I am going to read. Translations and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A sadhu, as described above, is a devotee of the Lord. His concern, therefore, is to enlighten people in devotional service to the Lord. That is his mercy. He knows that without devotional service to the Lord, human life is spoiled. A devotee travels all over the country from door to door, preaching, be Krishna conscious, be a devotee of Lord Krishna. Don't spoil your life in simply fulfilling your animal propensities. Human life is meant for self-realization or Krishna consciousness. These are the preachings of a sadhu. He is not satisfied with his own liberation. He always thinks about others. He is the most compassionate personality towards all the fallen souls. Therefore, one of his qualifications is Karunika, great mercy to the fallen souls. While engaged in preaching work, he has to meet with so many opposing elements, and therefore the sadhu or devotee of the Lord has to be very tolerant. Someone may ill-treat him because the conditioned souls are not prepared to receive the transcendental knowledge of devotional service. They do not like it. That is their disease. The sadhu has the thankless task of impressing upon the importance of devotional service. Sometimes devotees are personally attacked with violence. Lord Jesus Christ was crucified. Haridas Thakur was caned in 22 marketplaces, and Lord Chaitanya's principal assistant, Nityananda, was violently attacked by Jagai and Madhai, but still they were tolerant because their mission was to deliver the fallen souls. One of the qualifications of the sadhu is that he is very tolerant and is merciful to all the fallen souls. He is merciful because he is the well-wisher of all living entities. He is not only a well-wisher of human society, but a well-wisher of animal society as well. It is said here, Sarvadehinam, which indicates all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Not only does the human being have a material body, but other living entities such as cats and dogs also have material bodies. The devotee of Lord is merciful to everyone, cats, dogs, trees, etc. He treats all living entities in such a way that they can ultimately get salvation from this material entanglement. Shivanand Sen, one of the disciples of Lord Chaitanya, gave liberation to a dog by treating the dog transcendentally. There are many instances where a dog got salvation by association with a sadhu because a sadhu engages in the highest philanthropic activities for the benediction of all living entities. Yet a sadhu is not inimical towards anyone. The world is so ungrateful that even a sadhu has many enemies. Hare Krishna. Niru Mataji, are you available to read? You can read next paragraph.
Hare Krishna. What is the difference between an enemy and a friend? It is the difference in behavior. A sadhu behaves with all conditioned souls for their ultimate relief from material entanglement. Therefore, no one can be more friendly than a sadhu in relieving a conditioned soul. A sadhu is calm and quietly and peacefully follows the principles of scripture. A sadhu means one who follows the principles of scripture and at the same time is a devotee of the Lord. One who actually follows the principles of scripture must be a devotee of God because all the Shastras instruct us to obey the orders of personality of Godhead. Therefore, sadhu means a follower of the scriptural injunctions and a devotee of the Lord. All these characteristics are prominent in a devotee. A devotee develops
Okay, I think your connection is breaking. I will just quickly read the last few lines. A devotee develops all the good qualities of the demigods, whereas a non-devotee, even though academically qualified, has no actual good qualifications or good characteristics according to the standard of transcendental realization. Prabhuji, I recommend for the next two verses, if the purports are not big, if you can just quickly read them or make a decision based on how much time we have, because some devotees may not have a stable connection, so to save time.
Thank you, Devi. So I'll quickly cover the verses and the translation and leave the purpose as a homework. Hare Krishna. Srimadbhagavatam, Canto 3, verse 20, chapter 25, verse 22. Maya ananyena bhavena bhaktin kurvanti ye dridam matkrite takta karmanas tyakta swajana bandhvaha. Translation by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Verse 23. Madashreya katha mrishtaha shravanti katayanti cha tapanti vividhastapa naitan madgata chetasaha. Translation. Engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Hare Krishna. So here we just learned some amazing qualities of a sadhu. As Srila Prabhupada is describing what is the purpose of sadhu. Last week what we covered was actually the punchline, right? In the 3:25-25 verse, where it was said that the association of pure devotees, what happens in the association? Discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of God that takes place. And these discussions are very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. And actually, it removes the blockages between our ears and our heart. And that's why when we chant the holy name in the morning, it enters through our ears and into our heart. So this is Lord himself is entering. So he's not different from his name. And by cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced in their transcendental endeavor onto the path of liberation. So this liberation is not merging into Brahman. This liberation is to become a devotee, Jivera Supaya Krishnera Nityadas, to be a loving devoted servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally. And in this way, a living entity is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. So that's the real devotion, and that's when the real devotional life begins. Now, my dear devotees, think about it. In a world loud with conflict, right? Means there are conflicts every day, everywhere. The softest sound is that of a sadhu's heart that can shake even the universe. And there's so many wonderful examples. In Srimad Bhagavatam, this is amazing scripture where the conversations are happening between personalities who are completely in a reverse order. This is a conversation in third canto where Kapil Dev, who's son of Devhuti, is preaching to his mother because she is feeling separation from her husband who has left for the forest. So Kardama Muni is the father. And even the Supreme Personality is born in his home. He is carrying out his duties by going to the forest and engaging in devotional service, giving up all association. Now, it doesn't mean that he did not carry out his duties. He did carry out his duties. And then he handed over the duties to his grown-up son, Lord Kapil Dev, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And so Lord is taking on the charge of his mother with this thought that he has to deliver. So that is what is the responsibility of the leaders. So parents are leaders, right? And when the children are grown up and mothers and sisters and daughters, they're under the care of a man, then that person, the man, becomes a leader and is responsible for their deliverance. Not just from roti kapda makan, not just from food, stuffs, clothes, and house, but also from this material covering, has to be liberated. So one needs to understand this aspect. And that is a great responsibility. And in this chapter, that is being described in this canto. Now we hear about Parikshit Maharaj himself is inquiring from Shukdev Goswami. Shukdev Goswami appears to be just 16-year-old boy, even though in reality he is much older. In fourth canto, many people they hear, in the fifth canto, they hear about personalities like Chatur Kumara, Sanak Sanatan, Sananda, and Sanat Kumar. They are visiting Prithu Maharaj. Now, Prithu Maharaj is emperor of the world and he looks much older. And these four personalities, even though they are son of Lord Brahma and very old, they appear just like 5-year-old boys. So it's very interesting how, from someone not understanding the conversation and the context, they may feel like, what can 5-year-old can teach a grown-up king? He's ruling the world. What can a 5-year-old teach? Well, this is from the materialized. When we dig deeper, then such transcendental knowledge is very satisfying to the heart and to the soul, to us in reality. So here, imagine this world where one person walks in and everything changes, right? Just like the Chatur Kumaras, just like Kapil Dev. Even there are examples where Dadichi Muni, he is giving Brahma Vidya to Ashwini Kumaras through the head of a horse. That's why it's also called Ashwavidya, because it was spoken through the mouth of a horse. So there are these kind of examples, and when people in current times, they hear about this and they're like, oh, these have to be mythical descriptions because they cannot perceive it. Just 50 years back, people could not imagine that babies can be cloned till scientists cloned them. So this is ascending knowledge in this material world. They won't believe till they are able to do it. And when they are able to do it, they say, oh, yeah, this can be done. So again, that's their attitude. And that's an envious nature we can see. They deride everything unless they are able to do it. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada gives an example that the materialistic view is a lion and the sheep, they are both feeling thirsty. They are both going to the lake and drinking water. And the lion could say to the goat, or the sheep in this case, or deer, the weaker animal, oh, you're muddying the water. And then use that as an excuse to kill that weaker animal. So this is the mindset of a materialist. That somehow or other they want to just deride others and call things mythical, even though they have limitations. They try to put those limitations onto the God and his devotees. But a devotee doesn't need power, just by the presence of a devotee, they can change the world. So that person, just by whose presence and whose behavior, one can feel enlightened onto the transcendental path. Such a person is a sadhu. So again, this is the quality in the very first verse, that was Titikshva Karunika Surhita Sarvadehinam. So again, all these qualities have been discussed in these three verses. And Kapil Dev is an incarnation of the Lord himself. He is describing the character, conduct, and consciousness of the true saint. So character is showing qualities like tolerance, peace, friendliness, not considering anyone as enemy. So Ajashatruva, when people look at that word, one who has no enemies, and then look at Yudhishthira Maharaj was called Ajashatruva, they would say, wait a minute, Duryodhana was his enemy, but Yudhishthira Maharaj never considered Duryodhana as his enemy. So from Yudhishthira Maharaj's perspective, Ajashatruva, he doesn't have an enemy. He is Suhrid Sarvadehinam. He is the best friend of all living entities, including Duryodhana and others. So from that perspective, when we see things, we come to the right level of understanding. And when you look at the conduct of a devotee, they are staunch in their devotion and service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And for that, they are ready to renounce anything. That doesn't mean they give up home and not carry out their duties. Arjuna wanted to do that on the battlefield. So we all know that Arjuna was saying, oh, Krishna, I don't want to fight. Means all my relatives are gathered here and fighting with my elders, the worshipable elders like Bhishma Pitama and Dronacharya, my teacher. Means that will cause sin. It will cause sinful reaction and the women will be polluted and Varna Sankara. Unwanted progeny will be the result. So this is all bad things that I'm seeing happening if I engage in this war. But Lord Krishna, he awakens him that you are actually in this Vishad Yoga, in this constant duality you are facing because of the attachment with the body. You have to understand that actually it's a service that you are doing. And when you carry out your duties as service, again, 3 different levels you can carry it out. We can understand that. So again, that's how we understand the category of even the sadhus. One who's carrying out in fear, he is just beginning, but he understands that bad things should not be done. At least he's not doing the sinful actions. So that's a good quality that we are wishing. But even better than that is one who's saying, it is my duty to do good things and my duty not to do or let others do bad things. So again, that is a highest platform. But even higher than that, the highest is, I love the Lord so much, that's why my action is like that. So the conduct and the character of a person becomes as a reflection of love to the Supreme Personality of God. In this regard, sometimes devotees, they feel insulted as well, right? They're insulted by materialists and sometimes even by great personalities like Goddess Parvati. Chitraketu, he was with the Gandharvas, traveling on his palace, floating palace on a mountain hill. And he just laughed and it's like, this is amazing. What was amazing? Because he was appreciating the scenario where Lord Shiva was having his wife, Goddess Parvati, on his lap while he was addressing and having transcendental discussions with many sages and munis. So here in this gathering, Chitraketu is saying he's so detached, yet at the same time, he's showing that he loves us so much. And that Goddess Parvati took it as a negative aspect and immediately cursed him to become a demon. And did he become upset? No, Chitraketu came down, paid obeisances, and accepted that curse. And that, my dear mother, you have given me, I accept it very well. And then when he left, at that time, Goddess Parvati was surprised by this response from King Chitraketu. And at that time, Lord Shiva glorified Chitraketu. And when he glorified Goddess Parvati, because of feeling ashamed, she covered her face with the veil of a sari. So again, this is where the true reflection comes in. If someone gives fire, we don't fight it with fire. So sadhus have the tendency to absorb that fire and then let out light so as to awaken others. So that is the way a sadhu behaves. Now, sometimes people say, well, yes, this is so interesting, but how can we, follow anukulena, anushilanam? Anushilanam is following the footsteps of great acharyas or the sadhus. So you can take a moment to close your eyes and just imagine the footsteps of a sadhu. They're not harsh, they're just walking softly on the earth. And a sadhu, he's speaking little, but his mind chants loudly. He's in his mind, he's constantly chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And even though he may be insulted, he's criticized, he simply smiles, absorbing the heat and giving out the light. Both are energies, but he's transforming that energy. And even though he's rejected by others, he still glows. And unseen by others, yet he is seen by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So in your heart, you can ask this question. Can I, walk one step behind this sadhu? How can I understand how he is able to carry out? It's not like imitation, anukaran. No, this is anusharan. How can I develop these qualities? That's what we have to think. And we have to think that these qualities are developed at the level of love. So that highest level, that not just I fear or my duty, but I love to serve the Lord. So breathe in deeply. And now let's begin our journey in this session where we are discussing the definition of a sadhu and seeking the blessings of the acharyas and the sages and the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, Radha Krishna, so that we can embrace and imbibe some of these qualities. So these are the gems that we want to, enlighten our life with. So some aspect we can cover is that a sadhu is shanta, he is peaceful and tolerant. A sadhu is arjava, he has unflinching devotion to Lord Krishna. And a sadhu is danta, he is self-controlled and completely renounced. And then he has Hari Katharas. So he has enlightening, he's enlightened in the hearing and chanting of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Upekshaka, he is unmoved by suffering, because suffering is fact of life. This material world is dukhalyam ashashvatam, as is described in Bhagavad Gita. It is a place of misery, and it is temporary in nature. So sometimes people say, wow, this world is bed of thorns. But devotees, sometimes, they are so much in pleasure, it seems like they're on the bed of roses. Yes, because on the transcendental platform, this world from the eyes of a devotee appears spiritual. And so it turns into a bed of roses, because that's what is the nature of spiritual realness, not the material real. So we have to look at the symptoms of a sadhu. And what are those symptoms, my dear devotees? Tikshavam means he is tolerant. Karunika, he is merciful. He is making himself available and engaging others in devotional service. That is a mercy. So Lord's mercy flows through his devotee. That's why a devotee is called merciful. And he is Suhridam Sarvadehinam. So he is friendly to all living entities. And Ajashatruvam is, he has no enemies, because he doesn't consider anyone as his enemies. How could he consider? He says, Lord in everyone's heart, that, Paramatma is residing in everyone's heart. Vidya Vinay Sampade Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Cheva Shopakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So he has equal vision, because he is seeing Lord in everyone's heart. That doesn't mean everyone is Lord. Everyone is not Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone has Lord in their heart, where they are just right next to the Lord. The soul is right next to the super soul. And sadhava, sometimes people misunderstand it to be a siddha sadha. No, he is not a simple person. He is abiding by the scriptures. And that's why his conduct appears to be very simple and straightforward. And so sadhu bhushana, so these are the characteristics which are sublime. These are the jewels or the gems or precious qualities. So it is not that he is wearing diamond rings and he's wearing golden chains. No, he's wearing a character that glows like abhushana, sadhu bhushana. So these characteristics are sublime. And my Guru Maharaj, in this regard, many times he would say that a devotee tolerates even harsh treatment if it allows him to serve Krishna more purely. So by becoming more humble and tolerant, it enables us to become more submissive and more loving towards Lord Krishna, right? Because saintliness is not something that needs to be proven by power, but by peacefulness, by love, by the nature of being merciful to others. And many acharyas talk about these characteristics, that we cannot just be sadhu and hold on to grudges. We have to let them go and let Krishna handle it. That's their reaction coming. And actually, we are thankful that we should be getting much heavily insulted because of the past karmas. But by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our bad karmas, all the reactions are washing away. So we should be thankful. So this is the mood of a sadhu, because he is always thinking Lord is the best friend of all living entities, and of course he would not let anything bad happen to me. So this is a good thing that all this karma cycle is finishing. And so tolerance is not a weakness, dear devotees. It's an inner strength, right, that walks hand in hand with humility. That doesn't mean you treat sadhu as a doormat. No, sadhu is not taken as a doormat. He is just being humble and not responding back. But when they respond by giving you light, by giving you awakening this transcendental knowledge and this transcendental life. by engaging others in transcendental life so that they can advance further back home, back to Godhead. So if someone insults you and then you bless them, well, at that time, that's the sign that you have joined the league of true saintly peoples. Yes. So when somebody curses us, yet we only gives out blessing because you only have love in your heart. So when you only have love in your heart, you can only share love. When people have hatred even towards Krishna, then they will share hatred towards others who are dear to Krishna. So that is not a surprise. And so we should not let others' ugliness pollute our hearts, because we have to understand what is helpful in our devotional service and what is harmful for our devotional service. So anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjana. So we have to understand the 6 limbs of surrender. These first 2 are very important. We have to accept everything that is favorable for our discharge of devotional service, and we have to reject everything that is unfavorable to the discharge of devotional service. And so saintly people, they don't fight fire with fire. That's why I've been talking about that. They have this tolerance and humility to absorb that fire, that criticism, that blames and other things being imposed upon them. They absorb it, but they, by their character and by their conduct, they are only returning that same energy in the form of a light. It's very interesting that how energy is a neutral factor, but this same energy can be driven out as, a heater is giving out heat, while an AC that's giving out cold. So the air is getting transferred in one case into a hotter air, and in another case into a colder air. So we can look from the perspective that how things are so humorous and insightful in our life as well, right? Sometimes, when we become devotee and we have conversation, sometimes we are talking about things, and I was in a conversation with a gentleman. He was saying that I'm trying to be a sadhu, but people just keep annoying me. Well, that's a good thing. Krishna is sending you direct free tolerance training. This is a tolerance training. But then sometimes people are not so on that level. So they may say, wait a minute, but I didn't sign up for this, this behavior from others annoying me. Well, too late, because you prayed for advancement, and this is the express path. Humility and tolerance, these are the 2 essential aspects. So we should understand that tolerance is not a passive quality. It is active participation in purification and transcendental progression. So in our life, we can look at things from that perspective. Well, sometimes people, they come near to the temple and they talk about, oh, this is how sadhu should be. This is how sadhu is expected to behave. This is the consciousness of a sadhu. They may feel a little offended. They could ask a question. What if someone yells at me while I'm distributing? I'm distributing prasadam and distributing books. When I'm trying to help in devotional service, some way or another trying to help. Well, we can understand that it is then Krishna, has given them a chance to hear his name while shouting. Sometimes people say, oh, these Hare Krishnas, they are, they don't do any work or anything. They just, ask for donation, and they keep singing and chanting all day and have sumptuous prasadam all the time. So again, they said Hare Krishna. So just by saying that word, even in criticism, they have actually taken the Lord's name. So this is, even while people shouting, criticizing, and blaming, they are speaking Lord Krishna's name. So what should we do? Sometimes we could ask, when I'm distributing and this is happening, you're saying that it is helping them, then what should my reaction be? Right? Well, we have to quieten our ego, right? Because it is the quieter we are, and specifically our ego, right? And this is talking about the false ego aspect, then the louder Krishna speaks through us. So this is an important aspect we have to understand, that a sadhu serves even those who reject service. That is the mood of a sadhu. And sometimes people, they are, interact with devotees, and they have this basic question. So how do you stay so calm during traffic jams? This is something that happened, just day before yesterday. I was literally in 2.5 hours, I was bumper to bumper traffic jam. What do I do? Right? Well, I chant Mahamantra and let Krishna manage the chaos. Now, this is also very important that we don't count those mantras towards our daily chanting rounds, right? This is just Krishna's put us in a situation, all we can do is chant Krishna's name, right? So that is the perspective. In this regard, there is a beautiful comparison that we can understand. One devotee, a disciple, goes to his spiritual master and he says, "My dear spiritual master, can I drive while chanting?" Spiritual master looks at him and says, "No, you should not, drive while chanting." Chant, yeah. Then his disciples, another friend who's another disciple, he comes and asks his spiritual master, "But my dear spiritual master, can I chant when I'm driving?" The spiritual master smiles and he says, yes, you can chant while driving, but not drive towards chanting. Why? Because driving towards chanting is you're trying to count as those chanting, of the holy names towards the daily minimum quota of your rounds. So that is not allowed. That's an offense. But this is a positive thing. So yes, so when we are stuck in the traffic, there's nothing else to do. We can chant the holy name of the Lord. And sometimes, this enables us to manage the chaos. It's actually focuses us and instills that strong foundation and depth in us. So people say, "Oh, so you're in a traffic, don't you, stop chanting when people are cutting you off, they are misbehaving or not properly driving around you?" Well, it's actually, especially those are the moments that we should take to chanting, because that's Krishna is described, helping us learn, and he's teaching us the patience, how to be patient, how to be tolerant, how to be calm in cases of disturbances around us. So peace, my dear devotees, is not absence of chaos, but it is presence of Krishna in the heart. So we have to look at things with the proper perspective. Sometimes this material world, when people look at it, they come to the temple and they love the love feast, and they love the chanting and the glorification they love, and then they come out, and it's very interesting when they're interacting with devotees. They are talking about their vacation. They just came from Bali. So say, "Oh, peace is in Bali, Their Bali has so many wonderful beaches and 5-star spas. That was a wonderful vacation." But in reality, they're missing out that the real peace is in the heart that wants nothing but Krishna. So when they hear anything related to this topic, they say, "Oh, that sounds boring." Well, it's important. Why don't we try sitting in front of the deities just for 10 minutes? You would never want to leave. And then they experience that, yes, all this chanting and dancing, they were doing some level of chanting and some kind of dancing in the material world, but in the mood of lust. But this is in a mood of love. They see all these youngsters singing Hare Krishna Mahamantra, jumping up and down, for people from all ages, in the devotee association. So they say, "This is so blissful. I don't want to leave this," right? So a sadhu's peace is not escapism. It is absorption. So we have to look things with the proper perspective. Now, what kind of real life practices we can take on when we are looking from this perspective? Well, we can, again, I have said this many times, when we start our day, we start with the right consciousness. Even Lord Brahma was born from the womb, from the navel that came from the lotus that came from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. He is born on that lotus, and his first thing that in the beginning of the day is like, even though I'm the sum total of all the energies and I have awakened with so much power, but my dear Lord, let me meditate on you and carry out my duties in your service. That is his mood. He's not taking credit for anything. He's giving all credit to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can start the day that, yes, let me tolerate all provocations without losing my devotional focus. That should be our prayer as we carry out our daily activities. And sometimes it's nice to just carry out the, a verse card. Titikshava Karunika Sarvadehinam. So again, we can just, anytime we feel irritated, we can just take our hand in the pocket and just take it out and read it to ourselves and situate ourselves in proper consciousness. We can always offer one act of kindness to someone who's rude to us. That's also one very good practice. And I have seen enemies turn into dear friends by this. And this is very powerful. And sometimes we have this tendency of complaining, all these things are happening not because of me, because of all these other people around me. That's general attitude. So we can refrain from complaint just for one day. We can say, today, I'm not going to complain about anything. And then you can do a journaling of your experiences. What did you feel today? How did others behave? And what did you see around? Because Srila Prabhupada said, we are just thrown into an ocean. The waves will keep hitting us. We cannot say, waves, you don't hit us. We can just learn to swim through those waves. And even better, we can pray to the Lord and carry out our duties so nicely that Lord lifts us up from this ocean and of this Bhavasagar, which is this material world, and completely helps us cross. So again, he takes us across the ocean through his mercy. And sometimes we reflect that as an analogy of a cruise ship. It's very difficult to swim through an ocean, but hey, we are on a cruise ride. That's a wonderful experience. And we should, at many times, when others are speaking loudly, shouting, criticizing, we should just practice maunam. Maunam is sacred silence, but this not sacred silence that I'm going to not speak anything, but rather, instead of meditating of not speak anything, meditating on the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And my dear devotees, during intense emotional moments, this is very powerful. And I have personal experience that actually, it was wonderful to just meditate on Krishna and just let things flow as they are. And afterwards, you come out so nicely through this, right? Now, what kind of things we can do in the beginning of day, or the beginning of night? Some of the journaling prompts that we can help us navigate our path through this material world is we can have some journaling, right? So we ask ourselves these questions. When was the last time I reacted instead of responding peacefully? When was the last time I did this, right? And how do I define tolerance in my day-to-day life? So many things are happening, but how am I defining the tolerance? Sometimes, it's very interesting. I met a devotee and, we were having this conversation. He's like, my dear Prabhu, I'm tolerating all these devotees, even though I have so many wonderful qualifications and all these, saintly qualities. They're completely ignoring me, but I'm tolerating it all. That's not a reflection. That's your false ego speaking, my dear Prabhu. We have to understand that tolerance is absorption in Krishna consciousness, that we are not reacting to others, but we are focusing on our engagement. And so we can think of what is one situation where I could have shown more karuna, mercy towards others instead of just saying I'm tolerating, right? And who do I see as my enemy and why? We have to ask this question because everyone is very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. If everyone is very dear to them, how could they be my enemy? And why am I looking at them as my enemy? It is the materialized that see others as enemy. The spiritualized only see a friend and a loving living entity. And what a small action can we take, right? To practice Suhrada Sarvadehina, that we are friends to all living entities. So these are some of the prompts that we can take on, right? And we see these examples from many saintly persons in Srimadbhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, he tolerated torture with forgiveness, even from coming directly from his father. Sometimes, once again, it is said by the acharyas, many of the acharyas reveal that he was thinking that his father is just having a, uh, he's just testing him. He's just seeing how saintly my son is. And he was just carrying out, yes, my dear father, nice test. Let another one come. Nice test. Let another one come. He was, even Queen Kunti, she is saying, let calamities come one after another because, my dear Lord, when the calamities come, we get to see you. And when we get to see you, that means we will not see the rebirth again. So we will come out of the cycle of birth and death. And now that we have become opulent, you are leaving us. And that is not a very favorable situation. Think of Haridas Thakur. He was beaten at 22 marketplaces across 7 markets. So, in the middle of a market, sometimes they're like the roundabouts areas or important cross sections. So there were 22 marketplaces. And even though he was being tortured and beaten, what was his reaction? He was only praying in his heart, mighty Lord, please don't hurt them. Please, they are just carrying out the order of Kaji, and please let them be. And, he was blessing them rather. And so later on, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sees, Haridas Thakur, he says, you know what, I was ready to discharge my Sudarshan, but you were blessing them. How could I discharge when you're blessing them? You're protecting them. So all I could do was I could cover your back. And then he shows, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows all those marks were actually on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's back instead of Haridas Thakur. So Lord, he took on that beating for his devotee. Even though it appears that Haridas Thakur was being beaten, it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who was saving him. Let's talk about Amrish Maharaj. When he just used little water to not, commit an offense onto the lotus feet of Krishna, to break his fast timely, Durvasa became angry and was ready to kill Amrish Maharaj. Yet at the same time, Sudarshan came to protect, and Durvasa was running for his life. Yet even Lord said that I am under the control of my devotee. I cannot save you, Durvasa Muni. You have to go and take shelter of Amrish Maharaj. And Amrish Maharaj, for a whole year while Durvasa Muni was being chased by the Sudarshan, he didn't eat anything. So he forgave Durvasa's attacks and also protected him from Sudarshan. And at that time, Durvasa Muni, he glorifies Amrish Maharaj, his saintly qualities. There are so many wonderful pastimes. This Bhagavatam is a treasure house of wonderful lessons that we can take. Even Bali Maharaj, again, when he took the vow of giving 3 steps of land, at that time, Lord, he made it appear like he cannot even carry out his promise. And later on, when Bali Maharaj said, your 3rd step you can put on my head, Lord gave him Sutala, which is even more opulent than the heavenly planet that Indra was looking after, seeking after. So here, it is so interesting that Lord approached Shukracharya, who's of course one eye is gone because he tried to block the path of the pot, the water, should not come out. And Lord used a simple straw to poke his eye, blocking the pot. That's mystical thing. Yes, many times people would not be able to relate to it. But it's very interesting that this really happened. And at that time, Shukracharya is glorifying the Lord. Now, my dear Lord, devotee who has taken shelter of you to satisfy you, how can they be defeated? Lord Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Kaunteya prati jani name bhakta pranashyati. So Arjun declared boldly that my devotee shall never perish. So we can see how peace, tolerance, and mercy is creating that foundation to be a sadhu. So it's a saintly person's foundation. And so we have to look from that, and they are able to get this because they have a stronger foundation, supporting these qualities, which is unflinching devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, I just wanted to help you understand that these qualities, these are, the characteristics that appear, seems to be coming from the conduct of a saintly person, that there is a greater purpose of a deeper consciousness, Krishna consciousness, that's enabling them to conduct in the way that they're conducting. And so is how we are seeing the various characteristics appear. It's not that they have this characteristic, that's why they're carrying out, it's the other way around. Hare Krishna Devi, would you like to share a further summary?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for summarizing such wonderful points in a meaningful way. this is our opportunity once a week. I mean, many devotees find lot of moments during their week to take shelter of Srimadbhagavatam, take shelter of holy names, and imbibe the teachings in their day-to-day life. So may the Supreme Lord and Srila Prabhupada and our Vaishnava Parampara bless all these efforts with Ananya Bhakti, clarity and loving reciprocation. We have been actually talking about in Chaitanya Charitamrita, what is the significance or potency of a moment's association with the pure devotee of the Lord. So when we talk about pure devotee, we should understand these pure devotees are sadhus. They are working on their tolerance. They are working on their sadhana. They are working on their absorption. And for many who are really pure souls, it is pretty spontaneous, as we know. So if we also want to cultivate our hearts, our devotional creepers, we should look for such sadhu sangha. Because in sadhu sangha, in Krsna Katha, such narrations, pastimes of the pure souls and the Supreme Lord, they touch our hearts and they draw us closer to Lord's lotus feet. So I really loved all the points about peace and tolerance, being forgiving, friendly, cultivating one-pointed devotion with Krishna as the center of our activities and life, how to understand and apply self-control and renunciation, how to benefit most from Hari Katha, because that's the real joy in devotional life, which is in Sravanam and Kirtanam, being engrossed or absorbed in Krishna's name and pastimes. And in this way, we have the opportunity to fix our mind on Krishna and not on the miseries of life. And that's essentially what a sadhu's life is. So we covered wonderful, we had the opportunity to hear beautiful examples of Ambarish Maharaj, Bali Maharaj. Then we know about Haridas Thakur. Though he endured public humiliation and illness, yet he danced in Hari Bhakti. He was a pure sadhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself demonstrated he faced all the ridicule, yet remained in constant blissful chanting. He was setting the example. His life is exemplary in showing how we can cultivate this Krishna consciousness. So in real life practices, some of the examples you mentioned, they are really worth deep reflection. In moments of pain and miseries, do we take shelter of holy names? Do we take shelter of Krsna Katha? And in moments when we are disturbed or emotional, are we identifying these are our feelings? They are not really me. And, when we come to serve, in serving Krishna, who are we trying to serve? So maintaining a attitude of gratitude, even during hardships, tolerating the dualities, helps us remind of Lord's gifts for us. And really, these gems from Srimad Bhagavatam, they're like our companions for life, which we keep reminding everyone in each session. So, Prabhuji, I think it's time and we can wrap up now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Gandhra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Have a wonderful week in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Om Tat Sat.